Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome back to the sandbox mode where today we're going to be trying to build our first version of our new bomber craft, which will go along with the darts in order to complete our carriers. So we have the dart regular, the dart with the missile interceptors, and then we'll have the bomber. So, let's see what this very first test is currently doing. Not terrible at all, 175,000 damage, so that's like one of the larger CRAM shots, but this time split into multiple. As you can probably tell by the bomber going slowly lower and lower down, this is still a very early test. It currently has rapid fire CRAMs, or at least, well, they're not rapid fire, but they're focused on attack speed for their size. That's what I should say. They're very small CRAMs, but they do a decent amount of damage, and they can fire every 7 seconds, which is more than enough for the bomber to stay nice and close to the target and just do constant, reliable damage. Now, I have also been doing a few tests with penetration depth shells and other stuff, and I'm not quite sure what type of weapon we're going to use just yet. Definitely CRAM, but there's a lot of options. Loads of smaller CRAM, one single devastating CRAM shot, or perhaps not even going with standard explosive, but allowing it to penetrate into the enemy's armor and then detonate, which I'll quickly showcase in just a second. Just want to have a look, see what that did. Not terrible. So here's another test craft I very quickly built. This is a 2000mm penetration depth fuse. So this will go inside of the target, sadly not hitting anywhere important right here. As you can see, it breaks through the enemy's armor, it goes 3 layers in, and then detonates. Even though that wasn't a particularly good hit, it has destroyed this turret here and completely removed the internal building there. This is going to be better versus really heavily armored targets, things like the bulwark, since it can ignore most of their armor. The other one is going to be more reliable versus the Deepwater Guard and such. And both craft right now, as you can probably tell, are kind of looking horrendous. They're just skeletons. They're just there so we can get to the target and test out how the weapon fires. Can you fire a second time, or have you broke? Which did happen earlier. Excellent, you broke. Okay, second shell, going into the armor there, and then it'll detonate inside that room. Didn't seem to do that much, but yet that room now is completely open to the elements, and so it's not quite as buoyant. Oh, inside of the turret, maybe? No, just off to the side. No, it did indeed destroy most of this turret. So as you can see, that's a really cool shell type as well. Definitely different to what I normally use, but it does sacrifice a little bit in terms of having less high explosive per shell, because there's just not enough room for both. So if it does miss, although it does have a depth fuse in the water as well, it doesn't always do all that much. But if it can get inside the target, as you can see, it can just clear out rooms, which are really, really useful. So to explain properly, these shells are half high explosive and half kinetic. That way they can break through the enemy armor before detonating, and they have 2 fuse types. They have the regular fuse, which is altitude, so if they go 10 meters below the water, which is about here-ish, they will still detonate regardless. That means if they just about miss the target, there'll still be an explosion and some damage will be done, although not as much as a pure high explosive, which has, well, more high explosive, and then it has a penetration depth fuse, which after 5 meters, it will then detonate as well. I thought it was 3, I've actually said it's 5. I am tempted to walk that back to 3. So as soon as it starts going through the target, 5 meters, detonates, hopefully in something important. So this should hit the turret itself, which is lovely. As you can see, it's gone through. And then in a second, goodbye to the rest of the turret. And once again, these things can be brutal if they hit the right spot on the target. So even very heavily armored things like the bulwark can be really, really damaged. And these are really cheap still. These are still small bombers. But I think overall, I am going to stick with the multiple shells for now. I'll probably have 2 versions of the bomber by the end. Though watching this be so effective, I am tempted to stick with this. For now though, let's go with the other one. And let's see if we can make a functioning bomber plane. So, back to the Swarm CRAM. This is one we're going to be building up, just because I think this will be more reliable versus the first enemies. And in fact, I'm likely to add more CRAM on less of a delay, because I like loads and loads of explosions. What we're going to be doing is not using traditional wings for any altitude. We're not going to be using them for any lift. Instead, we're going to be focusing completely on pitch, yaw, and roll. That way, we don't have to have traditional-looking wings, which can be really easily shot off. In fact, that's the main weakness of the darts. It's so easy to knock off a wing, and then they're completely useless. They just go round and round and round until they eventually get taken out. With this one, all of our altitude is going to be taken from our pitch, so we aim up to move up. So it's more like a traditional thrustercraft build, but we're going to be sticking with the air elevators in order to do that at elevation, because I don't want a secondary engine. I want to stick purely with the jets and then these. But all this will be armoured up. So, I probably explained that terribly. What I'm going to do is add more CRAM cannons, probably out to about here. So currently we have 6. I would like to have... currently have 7, just some of them aren't firing, so I've set it up wrong. I would like at least another 3, so bring him out to about here. Then that should cause so much damage over a large area of the target, it should deactivate pretty much any wooden or light craft. So, anti-deepwater guard, eventually moving on to the larger, less CRAMs. Okay, I'm waffling. Be right back once I've done some work. Wow. That worked. Yep, can confirm. Worked. Look at this poor thing trying to fly. Please give me wings or anything. Yeah. Okay, so it turns out I actually messed up with the CRAM Tetris as well a little bit on the originals. I fixed some of it, but I still need to work on it a lot. Oh, but that works so much better than I expected. Oh, yeah, I didn't set up the fuses with the new ones. Okay, so lots still to do, but that is a very, very encouraging start. So currently, my goal is to have this less than 4,000 volume. It's currently just hit 2k, and my cost limit, I would say, is about 50k, which I think should be quite easy since CRAM is actually quite cheap. That was quite nice, though. Yeah, if that can do that to a bulwark, then it should be able to do some serious damage, since this is a brand new bulwark just spawned in for that test, against things like the Plunderer or against the Crossbones, which have just lighter armor because they are Deepwater Guard. That should be devastating. So I think I will stick with the cluster CRAMs for now. Question is, can we make this armoured up enough that it can take a few hits, unlike the darts? Well, that's the difficult part, actually. Normally, armouring things up is actually my favourite part. Not with this one. This is going to be really difficult, in my opinion. Let's get to work. Lathrix, why on a bomber do you have 4 custom jets? Well, dear viewer, the reason is, it looks cool. In fact, none of these are coming close to the power you could get from just a single one of the same size as any one of them. They are incredibly weak, but I just think that looks really freaking cool. So we're staying with 4, at least for now. I may go down to 2 or perhaps even 3 later on, but for now, this is just where we're going with this. So these are CRAMs on the top, but thankfully the first layer on the top is only gauge, and that's the same on the bottom as well, and gauge itself is actually surprisingly tough. The gauge increases 350 health and 15 armor per block, which makes them literally metal. So that's not too bad. So with only 1 layer of armor, they are quite defended. And I think the bottom is actually where we're going to really struggle to arm this thing up. I'm also considering giving this some very light weapons, just because I think it would be cool to have a light weapon on the back or the front and a separate AI which can target enemy flyers who are after this thing. Of course, we do have the darts, whose sole purpose is to deal with them. But I kind of like that idea, you know? Okay, except for the rocking, this thing is working as intended. Just the PID needs a bit more balancing. Now the question is, how am I going to sort out the wings? I do want it to have at least some size of wings. I think it will look natural, I think it will look quite nice, but I don't know if it's going to be completely cosmetic, or at least have some functionality to it. I'm thinking mostly cosmetic, honestly. On the upside, though, we do have loads of space now to work on our armor, so these weapons should be really difficult to kill. It seems like flak weaponry shouldn't really take this thing out. The elevators over here are functioning, and it seems like the only real vulnerable section is going to be the rudders here. So I might add them on the top and on the bottom. So I'm tempted to leave the bombing like this, so it's not really diving at the enemy, it's staying at a fairly consistent altitude, which looks a lot nicer for a larger craft, but it does mean the CRAMs are going to have more time falling, which means there's a higher chance they're going to be just dodging or moving or generally not being hit in the face. Because that's a long time to fall. But it does look nice though. Okay, so it's been changed. It now actually does a proper bombing run, so it goes down to only 50 meters above the target, which is about there. It then drops the bombs when it's close enough. And then it flies back up to 300 meters above the target. Yeah, really need that delay to be a bit more extreme. Though, at the same time, big explosion, very fun. So, I've kind of gone down a bit of a middle route, so it's still not doing a true dive at the target, but at the same time it is lower down, and there is still a little bit of altitude difference. 50 meters between when it bombs here, and then as you can see it's going back up again, up to 50 meters above. That way it looks nice and stable, and I think it just looks just way nicer to watch. While still making sure the CRAMs are nice and close to the target so they're not falling for ages, allowing the target to move. Okay, let's just stick with that for now. Back to building. One of them clearly isn't fused still. Yeah, I don't think I want it to be any more extreme than that. Okay. So right now, we're about to hit the 20k resource mark and the 2k volume mark, and I think this is as far as I'm going to bring it out. Now, I know it looks weird, but I kind of like it. It looks like a deflated Zeppelin. And I kind of like that. So, go with that. Go with quite stumpy wings on the side. It's got an insane amount of armor on the sides. It's got some decent armor on the bottom and top, especially for where the ammo is about to go. And I think we can probably make this work. And because it's so small, we could have multiple of these on the carriers quite easily rather than just one of them. And I'm thinking we have this. Then we have a secondary bomber, which will have the... If we go over to our CRAM cannons, if we have the hardener pellets here, which allows us to have the kinetic shells which go into the target. That way, we have the more devastating versus heavy armor, and then we have these guys which are, although much more expensive, still not terrible if they are downed, and they should be able to take quite a beating. I think that's how I'm going to do this. What I should have said at the start is, you know what, I'm making something which looks like a bomb. Because then it almost looks like I made it intentionally so silly looking. But I do kind of like it, though. It's a very unique sort of thing. So, you know, I am still going to keep it like this. The second one, I'm definitely going to look up some proper bombing craft from the real world, because there are some great examples, and I really do want to copy one of those. Make it look a bit more natural. But for this one, sure. The first swarm bomber. Fine by me. Now, once I've finished off the front armor and replaced the AI, since right now the AI is literally on top, I do have plenty of space for that along with the ammo. I need to put those both inside of the craft, armor that up. I'm going to give it a quick test versus something which can actually hit it and see how well it can take damage. My main concern is that these are going to be knocked off really quickly, the rudders and the elevators. And once they're kind of removed, at least damaged, how long until this thing loses control? Right now, it has way more than it needs, so I'm hoping it can take quite a few hits there without any major concerns. It doesn't really have a major weak point, which I'm quite happy about. I'd say really the weakest point is probably directly from underneath, if it hits directly where the weapons are, so this section here, but even then, it's the gauge, then a layer of armor with only the connector going through, then the weapons themselves. So unless it's like a CRAM cannon hit, or a decent advanced cannon shot right there, I think everywhere else should be okay. That's not bad for its cost. I think it could be cheaper, but let's continue. One thing I just noticed is that our low altitude fuse was actually set incorrectly for a while. It was like this, and that was set on half of the weapons. I kept on seeing explosions which didn't quite reach the target, and I was thinking, are they exploding each other? Is something getting in the way like a shield? Nope, it was just detonating early. So one problem is, when approaching the target, it is going in a very straight line, which is very easy to actually predict. It's when it's actually attacking, that's when everything's a bit more up in the air. I mean, literally, but still. As you can probably tell, I'm still doing quite a few tests on this thing. So it seems like light arms fire actually doesn't really do all that much. The armor is layered pretty much everywhere, except for a few very minor spots. It can lose loads of the back section without losing control, because, again, it has way too many. It's actually underusing all the stuff it has because of the PID to make it a bit more stable, which does make it more predictable and easier to hit, but looks far better. From the flying bomb of death. Explosions! Okay, time to fight something a bit more menacing then. So I've been fighting the crossbones now for quite a long time, and still control has remained. The main body's absolutely fine. It has lost quite a bit on the back, but nothing major. The weapons are currently turned off, just so we can continue this. Oh, and I think finally... yeah, it's lost something, because that is not moving as it should. I say something, it's lost almost all of the back section. Look at that, it's been stripped completely of all of the rudders. Yeah, it can't control itself properly now. Okay, so anti-air weapons will still make this thing lose control, but it did take a very long time. Still, though, that is such a nasty weakness. I am sadly really running out of time already today, so we're going to do one final test, the crossbones versus the bomber. Who will win? 1v1. The weapons are, of course, back online. Not a bad first hit. 420k damage. Well, that's a lovely number. One cannon offline. Sadly, it's not one of the anti-air cannons, though. Just missing those anti-air cannons there, but destroying the top section, which isn't really anything important. Good. Well done. Intentional. So, of course, what this is an anti-boat versus something which can't really fight aircraft. But this is the target of the bomber. This isn't what everything else is going to go for. Okay, definitely removed something there, which is great. Lots of damage is being done per shot, and against a medium-sized ship, that's going to be just game over. I do think against the wooden enemies of the Deepwater Guard, this type of weapon is probably better, and then moving on to the penetration depth, as soon as we get to things like the Onyx Watch and above. Come on, please win this. The end cost of the bomber, on a side note, is 28,000 resource. The end volume is just shy of 3,000. Oh no! No, I think its control has been stripped by all those flak shots. Darn it, but look at the damage it's done at least. Oh, that's such high health. I really think that adding some internal stuff might be best. Because that's just annoying. Well, it went to space for a second, but at least it can do one last attack. And there goes one of his flak weapons. Nope, it can't control its pitch. What a shame. So what I've done is add two tiny little engines to the front, because we had some spare space where we were essentially sitting. And now I've added some extra turners and extra pitch-controlled thrusters. I don't think this will be enough to completely control the craft once all the back section is removed, but it is a good compensation. So as it's lost, it should be able to compensate nice and easily. Also, it looks like a face. It kind of looks like a Wimpod, I've just thought, from Pokemon. Well, interesting. Here we go with the final test, now with the thrusters active as well. Now, I'm almost certainly going to be replacing this craft, I have to say, but I am happy with the progress I made today. It's been a lot of fun and everything, but there are just so many things wrong with this craft, I think it needs to be redone. It functions, though, and if we're really lucky, it's going to do some serious damage to the crossbones before falling victim to it. Well, that's one CRAM cannon completely removed, the other one very badly damaged. And by cannon, I meant to say turret. Sadly though, the anti-air stuff's still here. In terms of sheer damage, I am more than happy with this. Not the best place to aim at. The front is, like, completely removed. Sorry, no, the back is completely removed. I was wondering why it's basically staying still, which is definitely good for our aircraft. In fact, it's no longer... It's lost on its AI. It's lost the AI which controls the anti-air guns. Is that really at the back? Oh yeah, look, heavy armor. There's heavy armor in a few places here. Well, I never knew that, in fact. I thought that one was at the front, but there we go. So, the bomber has pretty much won. The CRAM cannons can't really aim at this thing, and... yeah, no anti-aircraft weapons. Where were you even aiming, then? And now the center is being caught out. Well, definitely a lot of improvements can be done, but the bomber is definitely doing its job. Even if it does look more like a spacecraft. That's just like screaming to be hit now. So is this the main AI? Yeah, that's the main AI. Then I think there's one somewhere like here. I can't quite remember. There we go. Only one AI is left. If this is a proper fight, every other ship now will just finish this thing off. And I'm about to run out of fuel, which is unfair because this is meant to go with a carrier. So there we are. Definitely gets the job done. I've been experimenting with different CRAM cannons, mostly off camera admittedly, and I'm actually really happy with how it's turned out. I think there's a lot of stuff I can definitely improve, but for now, this is all I have time for, sadly, for today's episode. So, final thoughts then, as I repair this thing so I can actually see what it looks like at the end. There we are. Final thoughts. I think this craft works. I think it could certainly do a lot of damage, and honestly, now that it's got the thrusters, it's going to be quite difficult to kill as well. It's actually very heavily armored from almost every single angle, and it has a lot of redundancy, so I think it can definitely work. I'm just not happy with how it looks. For the most part, I think it looks unique, and I'm okay with it, but I'm really not happy with how many jets are at the back here. All I can keep on thinking is every time I get hit, is it going to take out one of these combustion chambers or something else, which then makes one of the jets either weaker or completely destroyed, which will then really, really affect the overall control of the thing. So I think I'm going to make it a bit more realistic next time, and I think I'm going to stick with less jets. We could go with 2 jets, then just have them really heavily armoured, but yeah, for a first try, I'm happy enough with it, and I really hope you like it as well. Tell me your opinion and what I should do differently next time. I have learned so much from this video. I think this is the first time building a true bomber before, so yeah, definitely happy with that. So with that, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed today's video, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that From the Depths is a series you wish to see continued in the future. In the next episode, I'm either going to be building the brand new bomber, the finished version, or I will be building the aircraft carrier, and maybe I'll just have done this off camera. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye. Hopefully as well, by the end of this week, I will be getting way more time to record again, going back to 3+ videos a week. At the moment, I'm barely hitting 2, and honestly, my goal is 4 or 5. But right now, just all the insanity going on in real life, and me relearning this game, It's been weird trying to make videos. Thank you so much for watching. Have a lovely day. Do take care. Goodbye.